All right, let's dive into Da Vinci's The Last Supper, huh? I mean, everyone knows this painting, right? But this article you sent, well, it claims there might be, some secrets hiding in plain sight, like hidden messages, maybe even some controversial figures. So let's see what we can find, huh?
Well, The Last Supper has always sort of captured people's imaginations, hasn't it? I mean, the detail, the realism,
Hmm.
it really pulls you in. And yeah, over the centuries, there have been a ton of theories about what Da Vinci might have hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, the article starts by reminding us just how huge this painting is, like over 40 square meters. Can you imagine even trying to paint something that big on a wall?
It's mind-boggling, isn't it? And it was painted directly onto the wall of a monastery in Milan.
Monastery, huh? So not exactly your typical canvas.
Right. And here's the thing. Da Vinci didn't use the typical fresco technique, like painting on wet plaster. He went for tempera paint on dry plaster. And that was a pretty risky choice. Experimental, even.
So why would he do that? I mean, wasn't that just asking for trouble?
Well, think of it this way. He was basically trading the durability of a fresco for the precision of a studio painting. You see, it gave him more time to work on the details, to get them just right. But it also made the painting much more fragile.
Ah, so that's why art historians are always debating how much of what we see today is actually Da Vinci's original work.
Exactly. I mean, how much has been changed by all the restoration work over the years? It's tough to say for sure. It's like trying to solve a puzzle, but some of the pieces might be, well, from a totally different puzzle.
Ah, that's a great way to put it. Adds a whole other layer of complexity to these theories about hidden messages,
Well,
right?
it really does.
Okay, so speaking of messages, let's get to the good stuff. The article claims that Da Vinci actually embedded a musical score within the painting.
A musical score?
Yeah, apparently the positions of the apostles' hands and the loaves of bread on the table, they can be interpreted as musical notes.
Oh, wow. That's certainly an intriguing theory. It would be typical of Da Vinci to kind of layer meanings into his work like that. But, even if it wasn't meant to be like literal music, the arrangement of those elements could still be deliberate symbolism. I mean, we know Da Vinci was a master of that kind of visual storytelling.
Oh, absolutely. And get this, the article also suggests that the apostles might be grouped according to, wait for it, their zodiac signs.
Zodiac signs. Okay, now we're definitely venturing into the realm of interpretation here, aren't we? But if true, I mean, it would kind of fit with Da Vinci's interest in astrology, right? And all that symbolism that was so popular during the Renaissance.
Right. I mean, it was like the thing back then.
Totally.
All right, so now we get to the theory about Judas. Apparently, Da Vinci might have used an actual criminal as the model for Judas.
Oh, wow. Talk about like method acting, right?
I mean, going the extra mile for authenticity.
Yeah.
But do we know for sure if he actually did that?
Well, we don't know for sure, but there are those classic visual cues, right? The ones that kind of point to Judas's betrayal, like the spilled salt and the money pouch. He's not exactly being subtle, is he?
It's like he's practically shouting, "Hey, this is the bad guy. Look at him."
Well, he's certainly not hiding it. But, we have to remember that spilled salt, I mean, that was a well-known symbol of bad luck long before Da Vinci. It was sort of like, visual shorthand. Everyone at the time would have understood what it meant.
Oh, right. So he was working with existing symbolism, but maybe giving it his own, Da Vinci twist.
Exactly. And that's part of what makes analyzing his work so fascinating. So, are you ready for the theory that really shakes things up?
Oh, yeah. Hit me with it. I think I know where you're going with this.
The article suggests that the figure usually identified as John the Apostle. Well, it might actually be Mary Magdalene.
Whoa. Okay, that one really blew my mind when I read it. I mean, The Last Supper is so famous, right? How could we be misinterpreting, like, a key figure all this time?
It is pretty wild, isn't it? And, it's actually one of the most debated theories about the painting. Some art historians see it as plausible, while others just completely dismiss it as, pure speculation.
Yeah. Well, the article does point to what it calls visual evidence, like, the way the two figures are positioned next to each other, their lines of sight. They even seem to form a V shape together.
Yeah, those visual elements are definitely there. But the question is, are they intentional? Are we seeing clues that were deliberately placed by Da Vinci? Or are we just kind of, imposing our own interpretations?
It really makes you look at the painting with fresh eyes, doesn't it? So what do the art historians who support this theory think Da Vinci was trying to say by including Mary Magdalene in the scene?
Well, they argue that it could point to a much closer relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene than, what's traditionally been acknowledged. Maybe even, like, hinting at a challenge to the religious hierarchy of the time.
Wait, are we about to go full, like, conspiracy theory here? Well, I mean, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Even if we, like, set aside the more dramatic theories for a sec, it's pretty clear that Da Vinci was using a lot of symbolism, right? Like visual language that the people back then would understood.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to really get the Last Supper, we kind of have to see it through the eyes of the people who saw it in the Renaissance.
Okay, so, like, back up for a second. What was the whole point of this painting in the first place? It wasn't just Da Vinci deciding to paint a masterpiece on a random wall, right?
No, not at all. It was commissioned for the what's called the refectory, basically the dining hall of the Santa Maria delle Grazie monastery in Milan.
Oh, so the monks would see it every day while they were eating.
Exactly.
So it was meant to, like, inspire them, make them think about Christ's sacrifice.
Yeah, exactly. It had to be both like a stunning work of art and something that was, theologically significant. Da Vinci would have been very aware of all that religious symbolism, all those traditional ways of depicting the Last Supper.
But knowing Da Vinci, he probably wasn't content to just follow the old formulas.
Right. You know him too well. He was always pushing boundaries, experimenting with techniques. He was obsessed with anatomy, perspective, light, and shadow. I mean, he used all of that to create a sense of realism and emotional depth. It was groundbreaking for the time.
So he's like balancing this artistic innovation with the expectations of the people who commissioned the painting and, like, the religious context. That must have been tricky.
Oh, yeah. It was a delicate balance for sure. And that tension, well, that might be where some of these theories about hidden messages actually come from. Like, was Da Vinci expressing his own personal beliefs? Or maybe even subtly, challenging dogma through his art? These are questions that art historians still argue about today.
Wow. Okay, so back to the Mary Magdalene theory for a minute. The article makes a pretty compelling case, using the idea of visual language to support their claims.
Right. It suggests that Da Vinci arranged the figures and their limbs in specific ways, like to kind of direct a viewer's eye and convey symbolic meaning.
Like, they point out that the apostles' hands on the right side of the painting, they seem to create a line, and it leads directly to, the figure next to Jesus.
Right. And the hands on the left side, well, they form another line. And it intersects with the first one right at that figure's shoulder. The article is basically claiming that intersection wasn't an accident. It's meant to highlight a connection between Jesus and that figure.
Right. And then there's that whole, like, V-shape thing.
Yeah, the contrast, that V shape formed by Jesus and the figure to his right with, like, the triangular shape made by Jesus's head, arms, and the table. They're saying these geometric forms, they were intentional, possibly representing a symbolic union.
It's all very the Da Vinci Code, isn't it? But honestly, some of it feels a little bit, I don't know, far-fetched, like they're reading into things too much.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to remember that interpreting art is pretty subjective, right? What one person sees as a clear symbol, someone else might dismiss as just, coincidence. We can't really know for sure what Da Vinci was thinking.
That's true. But even if we're not totally sold on the Mary Magdalene thing, there's still that whole hidden baby thing. Like, the article says if you look close enough, you can see the outline of a baby in the painting.
Yeah, and they're suggesting it could be, like, the child of Jesus in Mary Magdalene, which, well, that kind of adds fuel to the fire of that whole theory, doesn't it?
I don't know. A secret love child. That seems a bit out there, even for Da Vinci.
Maybe. But remember, the painting's been through a lot, right? Centuries of wear and tear, and then all that extensive restoration work. I mean, some details might not be what they originally were.
So it's possible this baby is just like a random smudge or something, and that, some conspiracy theorists got a little carried away.
It's definitely possible. And even if Da Vinci did include a baby in the scene, well, that doesn't automatically mean it's, a love child. It could be like a symbolic representation of innocence, or maybe even a reference to some other biblical story.
Okay, so maybe let's just pump the brakes on the secret affairs and the hidden babies for a second. Even without all those theories, I mean, The Last Supper is still an incredible painting. The way Da Vinci captured the emotion of that moment, it's breathtaking.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's amazing, right? The way he portrays the apostles' reactions to what Jesus just told them. You can practically feel the tension, the weight of that moment. It's a master class in storytelling, just using facial expressions and body language.
And you can see how much it's, like, inspired artists for centuries, right? There are so many interpretations and adaptations. Paintings, sculptures, plays, even movies.
Right. It just speaks to the power of Da Vinci's vision and the fact that this story, it's just timeless, The The Last Supper, it transcends cultures, transcends time. It resonates with people just as strongly today as it did, hundreds of years ago.
It really is amazing, huh? To
Yeah.
think that after all this time, after all the analysis, the Last Supper can still surprise us, still
Yeah.
make us think.
That's the beauty of great art, isn't it? It just keeps speaking to us across the centuries, always sparking new interpretations, new conversations.
It's funny, we've been going on and on about all these theories, these hidden meanings, but honestly, even without all that, the painting itself is just so powerful.
No, absolutely. Da Vinci's skill, his technique,
Hmm.
it's undeniable. The way he uses perspective, light, and shadow. I mean, he creates this incredible depth. Your eye is just drawn to certain points. It's masterful.
And the emotional impact, right? Like the expressions on their faces, the way they're all positioned. You can feel the drama, the weight of what's happening.
Yeah, it's like you can almost hear them, whispering to each other, reacting to what Jesus just said.
Have you ever seen The Last Supper in person?
I have, and it's
Yeah.
it's really awe-inspiring. Photos just don't do it justice. The scale of it, the details, and knowing you're standing in the same space where people have been contemplating the scene for, centuries. It's really moving.
I bet. I can only imagine. It must be amazing to see all the little nuances up close, the brush strokes, the textures.
And to feel that sense of history, thinking about all the people who stood in that same spot, looking at the same image and pondering the same questions, it really connects you to something bigger.
So after all this deep dive into The Last Supper, what's the takeaway for our listeners? What do you hope they'll walk away with?
I hope they'll come away with an appreciation for The Last Supper on different levels, not just as a beautiful painting, but as a work that reflects the whole cultural and religious context of its time, as a testament to Da Vinci's genius, and as a piece that still sparks debate and inspires awe even today.
It's a reminder that art isn't static.
Yeah.
We bring our own perspectives and interpretations to it. And those interpretations, they can change over time as we learn and grow.
Exactly. And that's what makes exploring art so rewarding. There's always something new to discover.
So to our listeners, here's a little challenge. Next time you see an image of The Last Supper, don't just glance at it. Take your time. Really look at it. Think about everything we've talked about today. The symbolism, the theories, the historical context.
And don't be afraid to draw your own conclusions. What do you see in the painting? What speaks to you?
Yeah, maybe try listening to that hidden music that's supposedly encoded in the painting. See if you can find that baby. Explore the different interpretations of those figures.
And most importantly, keep an open mind. Let the painting speak to you.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of The Last Supper. We hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.